Kimi Onoda, or Onoda Kimi. Japan's new immigration minister once had to prove that she was Japanese in front of the Diet. Whoa, okay, so this rings really true with me because I'm half Japanese by blood, born in Japan, brought up in England, mother's Japanese, father's English. And so I really know how this dialogue feels where people question your ethnicity, the way that you feel. But with Kimi Onoda, she was born in America, in Illinois in 1982, and then her mother brought her and her sister over to Japan when she was a baby. And she grew up in Japan, went through the Japanese education system, and then at 18, because Japan does not allow dual nationality, she had to choose whether she wanted to keep her American citizenship or to go with Japanese citizenship. And she chose to renounce her American citizenship and become fully naturalized as a Japanese person. So on paper, totally Japanese, brought up in the Japanese education system. For me, I can't fault it. I mean, she's been brought up around the Japanese values through the education system. She speaks perfect Japanese. She is, in the words of Japanese, except she has a blood running through her from an American father. And I can totally hear that because I've been living in Japan longer now than I have been living in England. And I love being in Japan. I'm half because my mother's Japanese. I've got Japanese blood in me, but I've chosen to keep my British citizenship at this moment. And so I am by kokuseki still British. So yeah, I'm a halfie too, and I have not become naturalized as a Japanese person. So here we go. Onoda Kimi has been elected into the cabinet for the Japanese government, and she is in charge of immigration. And I, for one, I'm excited by this actually. And she has a tough stance, as it seems. But leaving that aside for a sec, we've got a halfie in the Japanese government. Now, I know that she is Japanese by citizen, by paper, by everything, blah, blah, blah. But it's still, you can see that American blood. And I'm just happy, to be honest, that Japan has accepted a person of mixed race into the cabinet, whether they like to admit it or not. And so if we're going to talk about this, what does it mean to be Japanese? Then I love this fact that because the paperwork's in place, that she is Japanese and the blood becomes a second thing, right? So if I was to get the paperwork, would I be Japanese? Well, yes, on paper. And in fact, I could then argue I have a Japanese passport, so I am Japanese. But I'm sure that the Japanese people that I have the tussle with are still going to claim that I'm not actually Japanese and I may be fake Japanese or something. So we can never really win. So having somebody in power who is half Japanese, who's on paper Japanese, who is in charge of immigration and quite frankly is taking a hard line, as we can see so far, on immigration with the new Prime Minister. And I'm quite happy to see that because, to be honest, Japan is a country where I feel that as foreigners and as people who are half mixed race or whatever, and we need to embrace the Japanese culture. And yes, there are points about Japan where I think they need to catch up with the times. For example, in divorce cases and sole custody and joint custody, I feel that Japan's a bit behind and needs to get a little bit of a move on there. But in many ways, the ways that Japan operates is its own way. And if foreigners can't come in and be part of that, then I don't think that there's a good place for them here. And that's just my point of view. I think that Japan's one of those countries with less than 2% of a foreign population here, where Japan is all about being Japanese and they have a very big pride in being Japanese and doing things the Japanese way. And having foreigners coming in doing things their way, I think is inherently the wrong way to go, which is kind of ironic because I'm doing a channel here called Divorcing in Japan, where I'm talking about how we can try to change and better the divorce laws here in Japan. So the irony knocks over because like the same people that were adamant that Kimi Onoda had to prove that she was Japanese are now the same people that are allowing her to control Japanese immigration and which foreigners are allowed to come in and which foreigners are not to this great country. So we know that this is just the beginning, and politicians often in any country in the world come in with these gung-ho ideas of what they're going to do, and then they soften up a bit as time goes by. I mean, we do need to see if she's going to stand the test of time, but right now, I want to give her a break and say, come on, yeah, let's get this done and do your best. I want to be a supporter. I don't want to be one of those people running in and booing and no, it's too harsh. let's just see what happens and let's hope that there are changes on the way. For me, I am living in Japan as a foreigner because I'm not a Japanese citizen, although I have Japanese blood, and I am working here, enjoying here, paying taxes here, living here, and so I think I'm a good citizen. So I'm not worried, and I don't think that anybody who's a good citizen should be worried. And what's the definition of a bad citizen then? Well, I think people that commit crime. I think that people who are going to do things that are not considered good along the lines of the Japanese law and the Japanese way of doing things, the cultural aspects. We don't want to be doing pull-ups on torii gates and stuff like that. We want to try to be respectful to the culture and obviously the way that Japanese people brought up, and this element of kuki yomenai and kuki yomu. If you can't read the air in the room, then I think that's somewhere that foreigners often go wrong, is walking into a public place or walking into a room and not being able to read the air successfully, and therefore doing foreigner things or things that Japanese people might consider foreigners to do in those situations. And sure, yeah, they cut you a break a lot of the time, but there always is that eye roll, okay, it's a foreigner kind of thing, that attitude there. And yeah, there's not perfect things. As foreigners, we do get picked on. I mean, like if you pick up a pair of chopsticks in a restaurant, you know, a Japanese person will be like, wow, you're amazing, you know, and you say, konnichiwa, and they're like, wow, your Japanese is better than mine. And there is this big overreaction. But, you know, once you get past that and you get through that, it's just this case of 2% foreigners. So a lot of Japanese just don't really know how to react around foreigners. It's a very new thing. So they might do absurd things sometimes. We've got to catch them a break. You know, they catch us enough breaks, if you ask me. So, deportation of overstayers, limited refugee acceptance, and an emphasis on cultural conformity, which, as I just talked about, I think is a pretty good thing. So is this Japan's new version of purity, not by blood, but by paperwork? Let's find out. So perhaps she is the perfect person to be in charge of the immigration job because she's learned from a young age and growing up and also coming into office and coming into power and going up through the system. She's learned at every turn that Japan demands proof by paperwork, where you have to constantly prove yourself as a quasi or as a total foreigner. You constantly have to prove yourself to people in Japan, to the hanko pushers, that you are good enough to be here. And if you don't like it, to quote Onoda-san, then go back to your own country. And that's the stance that I think Japan's going to take. If you don't want to be here, then don't be here. And quite frankly, as a person who lives here and has my little gripes here and there, I don't have any overall massive reasons that make me want to think I don't want to be here and I'd rather go back to my own country. So sometimes I need to keep Stutt, and sometimes, yeah, I can have a little bit of banter and give my opinion. And I think that's a great thing about Japan, especially moving forward into the future. As we can see, for Kimi, she got the paperwork and she became a naturalized Japanese citizen, and she was educated here, as I said before, and so everybody is now on paper saying, yep, she's Japanese. But for me, I mean, I don't get that. I don't think that that's going to be the case, and I still think I can't read her mind and I don't have any proof, but it's my opinion that I'm sure she's still getting a lot of hassle from people about her blood background. And, you know, that's just the way Japan is right now, and I hope that this is a step in the door of Japan moving forward, because Japan has been very homogenous up till now, and they find it very difficult to accept anybody who is not the perfect Japanese as being Japanese. But when you define what the perfect Japanese is, things become hazy. So I came up with a definition as a halfie myself, that if you are questioning your own race and you are questioning whether you are Japanese at all in any way, it kind of means that you're not Japanese. The Japanese people have a great pride of being Japanese. They just know they're Japanese, they feel they're Japanese, and that's it. No questions to be asked. Even though if you dig back a few generations, you might find mixed ancestry in there. They don't want to talk about that, and they don't want to bring that up because that's irrelevant. They feel Japanese, therefore they are. And if there are any questions as to your race, then you're not Japanese. Japan likes to give out this view that identity is about your heart and whether you like to embrace the culture and whether you have respect for living here. But when you start digging down and you look at the actuals, then you'll find out it's just about paperwork and ticking the right boxes. And even then, even if you have that paperwork saying that you're Japanese, you still have to go out and prove it to the rest of the population. And as I say, you having to prove it to people means that you're still not Japanese. See what I mean? So Kishida, the new PM of Japan, has brought on this new cabinet, and there are a few women in there, and I think we're going to see growth there in the future. And one of the things that she said is she would rather see a shrinking population in Japan rather than open up the borders for wild immigration. That's not just a policy. I think that's an extension of the view that Japan would rather shrink and disappear than change. Now, what does that mean? Well, I think, to be honest, Japan staying as Japan is a good thing. Having lived here for over 20 years and over half of my life, I actually think that Japan not being in a rush to become some different country is in the interests of Japan. However, things not changing is something that we've always suffered with. And when things change, they do take time. So these radical changes that are being talked about right now, it might take some time. Is it a step in the right direction? Well, I think only time will tell. And I, for one, don't want to be jumping on the train of, yeah, let's support, or jumping on the train of, boo, get them out. I want to just sit back and give a few opinions here and there on both sides and see what happens. And I am interested to see what happens. If we go back to Onoda in all this, she is the contradiction, the face of purity born from mixed blood. And perhaps in contrast, we're seeing politicians talking about protecting Japan and protecting Japanese culture. We have to understand that there are more and more multicultural families being brought up here, more mixed kids, more foreign workers, and that even though Japan is going to keep the percentage of foreigners in Japan low, which I hope they do, because I think 2-3% is a good number. Once it gets to 10%, 20%, things are going to get wildly out of control. And to be honest, I don't think that that's going to be good for Japan at all. So keeping that percentage down to 2-3%, I'm in all support of, to be honest. As Japan moves forward with mixed race couples being married and mixed race children being born, we're going to see more and more and more of these problems with divorce happening. And Onoda-san is also very, very strong in divorce. And I've got a separate video coming after this, which focuses specifically on her views on divorce. So to finish off this video, I mean, Kimi Onoda, she basically is going out saying, like, we're going to make the rules harsher. We're going to make the rules. And she's the perfect person to do it because, you know, she believes in the rules. The rules have allowed her to be Japanese. You know, the paperwork rules, she followed the rules, she's chosen Japanese citizenship, and she has renounced her American citizenship. She's followed the rules, she's hankered the boxes, and she's got the paperwork to prove that she's Japanese. And now she gets to create an immigration system which is going to help Japan in the future. And so I think personally, the sooner that her race can be left on the table here, the better, because at the end of the day, I'm hoping that Japan is a little bit more flexible with its mixed race population. Being mixed race myself, seeing a lot of mixed race children, mixed race teenagers, mixed race young adults coming into society here in Japan that were born here or born in other countries that have come here to Japanese blooded parents. I hope that the law can reflect and protect us and not make us feel like we are abandoned refugees. If any of this rang with you, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and support. I'm a young channel and I'm trying to bring a community around like divorce in Japan, single fathers, and Japanese general things. And so please, if you can support, that would be great. And also I have part 2 coming up of this. This has been part 1 about Kimi Onoda, Japanese gatekeeper. And in the next video, we're going to look at her views on the divorce and the child payment system. Okay, thank you so much and see you next time. Goodbye.